Seems to be all about the Palins. In the past 24 hours, Bristol Palin lost on the hit TV show Dancing with the Stars, while her mother, Sarah Palin, launched her book tour in Phoenix, Arizona. The fam also is the subject of a new reality show called Sarah Palin's Alaska. And it seems like every channel you turn to or every newspaper you open has some mention of the former vice presidential candidate's name. So what's the deal? Is Mama Palin getting ready for a run for the White House in 2012? Well, joining me to help discuss this is Megan Carpentier, associate editor at Talking Points Memo from Schenectady, New York, and Tony Katz, conservative radio talk show host and Tea Party activist from our Los Angeles studios. I want to thank you both so much for joining me. First of all, Megan, I want to ask you, Sarah Palin hasn't actually come out and said that she's going to run for president. I think she just has said that she's possibly considering it. What do you think is going on? Do you think her book tour really is a cover for an early campaign tour?
I don't know if it's a cover for an early campaign tour, but I think it's clear from the way that she's positioned the book that she is looking at Barack Obama as a competitor. There's no mentions of Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid. There's nothing about Congress. It's very much about her movement and criticism of the current president.
Tony, I want to toss it to you now. You know, a lot of people are analyzing where her book tour is stopping. I believe a lot of stops are in red states, so a lot of people say, hey, this is a pretty obvious indication that maybe she's trying to rally up a base here. What do you think? Is this a cover for an early campaign tour?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here and a happy Thanksgiving to you and to everybody watching. Is this the campaign tour? I don't know if she's going to run. I don't know if she knows she's going to run. But the one thing you could say about Sarah Palin that is true, for everything that has been thrown at her over the past 2.5 years, for all the vitriol and bile tossed her way and her family's way, she is the most popular person in America. Her family are the most popular people in America. They are loved and adored. It is an undeniable fact. I haven't read the book America by Heart, nor have I read Going Rogue. I'm reading some other material at the moment. But it is obvious that in these books she puts forth a thesis that is about America and loving America. People really are attracted to that, and that runs juxtaposed to President Obama. So it's no wonder that if in these books and in her conversations she's more directed at Obama versus Reid or Pelosi, it's because President Obama signifies all the things she is not. She's not anti-America. Right. She's not anti-capitalism. She's not anti-liberty.
Okay, Tony, I want to interrupt you for a second. You know, a lot of people say it would be suicide for the Republican Party to nominate her. What do you think? Do you think the Republican Party could actually nominate her? She also recently said, I believe it was yesterday on Hannity, that she doesn't want to get in the way of the Republican Party defeating President Obama. As you guys both pointed out, you know, in her book, she seems to really view him as a sort of competitor. And she said that, you know, if a run for president by her would do that, then she's not interested. Tony, what do you think about that?
Well, I think her exact words were that she was going to be a distraction. She wouldn't get into the race. But I never deny the GOP in America the opportunity to shoot themselves in the foot or commit suicide. If there's a way to screw up this election, the establishment GOP will figure out how to do that. Okay. I don't know who the candidate's going to be. There is going to be a very, very big field, much bigger than I would have ever thought and much bigger than maybe I would even like. But it's going to be sizable, and there's going to be a good amount of fighting before we get to a candidate on the political right that hopefully not only has a lot of Tea Party establishment to them, but has a lot of the gravitas that we need in moving forward and getting independents and moderates and other people, and even people from the left who are completely disgusted by the presidency of Barack Obama and the leadership of Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi to come on over and vote for somebody who will make America exactly what it should be.
Okay, I want to go back to Megan. Megan, what do you think? Do you think the Republican Party could actually seriously nominate Sarah Palin, or do you think it would be suicide for their party? You know, she also came out and said that she thinks she can beat President Obama. I mean, do you think that that's a real possibility, Megan?
I mean, I think if you look at Sarah Palin's base and the Tea Party base, as Tony says, she is very beloved within a certain part of the Republican Party. And I think what you saw during the nomination process in 2008 is there were enough fiscal conservatives and enough social conservatives to kind of split the GOP base amongst themselves, and people ended up with John McCain as the candidate, who was perhaps not the strongest candidate in the general election against Barack Obama. Could in a very broad field that happen again? I think absolutely. I think the problem is, particularly with this book, there's very little in that appeals to independents. It's very base rallying. It's very much in line with her earlier book and a lot of her statements. And I think the difficulty with it for her as a potential presidential candidate is that it doesn't do anything to go after moderates or to go after disaffected liberals and say, hey, here's why you should vote for me. It's more or less the same things people have come to expect from Sarah Palin, and one of the reasons why her negatives among independents and liberals are so high. So I don't know that it accomplishes what Tony suggested it could accomplish, which is make her more popular with independent voters and liberal voters in 2012 in a way that could beat Obama.
And a lot of people are saying, though, that, the Tea Party is really a force to be reckoned with, and that if you look at the midterm elections, you saw many of these candidates being extremely successful. People also are analyzing this whole Dancing with the Stars phenomenon as an indication of how strong the Tea Party really is. A lot of people are saying that Bristol Palin would have never made it that far without the support of her mother's fans. Do you think her success on the show is an indication that the Tea Party is a force to be reckoned with, or even if you look back to the recent midterm elections, that, maybe it isn't so important to get those independents on board or those moderates? Megan, what do you think?
I think you see among the Tea Party candidates, a lot of these people were people who didn't turn out for John McCain in 2008, and they were disaffected conservatives. They're not typical voters. They're people that have been very upset with politics as usual in Washington. I think that's part of what people were calling the enthusiasm gap, is in 2008, Barack Obama was able to get people like that on the left and in the middle to the polls. And what you saw in 2010 is those people a lot of them didn't show up again, and they were replaced with Tea Party voters. I think when it comes to Dancing with the Stars, I think it's very much an indication, Bristol making the final 3, that there are a lot of Sarah Palin fans. I think there's a difficulty with that because most fans of Dancing with the Stars are independent and Republican voters, and people that were longtime fans of the show were actually very upset, not because they disliked Bristol or because they thought she was a terrible dancer. She did very well through at least the first half of the season. I think what they saw, though, were people who hadn't watched the show and weren't interested in the dancing voting for someone that they were a fan of personally and sort of interfering with the regular fan base of the show. And I think that from my experience talking to fans, even in my family who aren't liberals, people were very upset seeing the sort of political process they don't like playing out in their favorite television show.
Yeah, it was really interesting just kind of pop culturally to kind of look at how political this kind of reality TV show scene could really get. But, we've seen political campaigns in the midterm elections get more fiery and, more competitive than we've seen in previous elections. Do you think someone could use a reality show like Sarah Palin's Alaska or Dancing with the Stars, whichever one you want to look at, as a stepping stone to the White House? I mean, we've talked a lot here on RT about how the cool thing to do these days is for politicians to sort of distance themselves from elitist Washington and brand themselves as being just like the average American. But is this taking things too far, Tony?
Well, when you talk about Dancing with the Stars, it's a dance competition show. It's not a referendum on Sarah Palin, although I will say plenty of people said, hey, let's vote for Bristol and mess with ABC. And you know who the happiest guys in the world are right now? The producers of Dancing with the Stars on ABC. They're thrilled with the attention that this has gotten them. Sarah Palin's Alaska on TLC, that shows Sarah in a light that you would never get to see her in if you only paid attention to mainstream media. So it works very well for her. I don't think the books, by the way, get her voters. I think the books do appeal to a big amount of the base. But when the campaign comes and the base is already there, it gives her platform if she now wants to run and go after those independent voters. I think the Sarah Palin's Alaska show helps a lot. But what helps most of all is that when you see Sarah Palin and you hear Sarah Palin, you recognize that she's a woman speaking from the heart who believes in what the best of America can be, who will stick to those Tea Party 4 basics, the Constitution, capitalism, fiscal responsibility, and smaller government, and will not allow a left-wing slide. She simply won't stand for it, and that's why people love her so much.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2012.